going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chris's Habs Corner. I told you to be back tonight with some news updates that happened last week regarding Hutson, Sean Farrell, talk a little bit about Emil Heineman, go over the standings a little bit, just look at some of the injury updates and a little bit of what the hell is actually going on with our medical staff. That just needs to be addressed, I think. But getting into Lane Hutson, my God, is it amazing to watch this kid and the rare talent that he has. Playing 3 games this week in that Hockey East tournament, breaking Brian Leach's record now for most points by a defenseman in an NCAA single season. Someone that's under 19 years old at 48 points. That record hasn't been broken in 35 years. He had those 2 goals, including a game-winning goal against Merrimack. One of them was just absolutely beautiful with a deep shoulder fake one way and just cut the other way. Took a beautiful wrist shot. I mean, man, this kid is just amazing to watch. And then he had that goal against Western Michigan the other night, streaking down the slot. No one picked him up with that beautiful wrist shot he took. I just think that it's astonishing to me that 63 other times in that draft that year overlooked Lane Hutson. Just really because of his size and just his height wasn't there. Just his style of hockey is rare, and his gifts with the puck and without the puck and his intelligence is rare. Especially, he's only 18 years old. He's going to develop even more, which is absolutely insane. She's continuing on in that the Hockey East tournament. I think playing Minnesota next, where the Boston University Terriers are. Had 3 goals this week in 3 games. I think the last game against E. Cornell, he didn't score at all, but it doesn't really matter, It's just the most impressive thing about him is probably the way he sees the smallest amount of space and the smallest amount of gaps with and without the puck. Even before the puck gets on his stick, he just sees the tiniest amounts of gaps in space and just is able to break through them with his shiftiness. He's just the most shiftiest player I've ever seen. His body's looking like he's going 7 different directions, and then boom, he just moves right past you with totally opposite movement, just breaking right through you, just opening up more space. And when he does so, he creates more space for himself and other players, and he knows how to, exploit that. Really makes some nice, clever passes off of that, and just seems to understand pressure really well and where the gaps are in open areas when there's pressure on him or other players. Just total intelligence and really high hockey IQ. Just reads the game and watches the plays unfold at an extremely high level, more than a lot of other players in the NCAA, that's for damn sure. And as everybody's been saying, that's going to translate into the NHL pretty well, that part, A lot of guys that have their positivity in their game as speed or just skill sets with the puck, or they're physical, or they're just really have a good shot, that stuff is probably a lot less easier to translate into the NHL. I feel like if you have just a really good hockey IQ and really good understanding of the game, and that is your skill set, that's your weapon, that's your unique talent that you have, that is so much easier to bring with you to the next level and be able to use that as a talent. So I'm nothing but excited for him to finally join the Habs. I mean, a lot of people talk about him going to Laval eventually, and how there's players in our system that are similar, that are going to complement his skill set. I personally think there's players on the Habs, defensemen, thanks to the work of St. Louis and Kent Hughes, and the style of play we have and the style of a player that we're looking for, that really would understand Lane Hutson's game and his tendencies and learn how to operate around him. I think, like a guy like I'm just going to throw these names out there: Caden Gooley or Jordan Harris. Guys that are really good with first passes. They're really good on their decision making. They're really just stable defensemen that could even cover up for some of his mistakes maybe in his first couple of years with the Habs, which is down the road a little bit. They could really just read off his game and make smart, good decisions around Lane Hutson. Because in my personal opinion, I think just watching him, obviously he's going to spend another year at Boston University, which is the good thing. It's the right decision. But I just think that he's going to overpass other defensive prospects we have, like Engstrom, Mailloux, Riley Kidney, just all these other prospects that we have. I think he's just, once he's ready to hit the NHL, I think he's hitting the NHL. It doesn't matter about his size, He has enough intelligence and enough hockey smarts that he's just going to surpass any worries in that department of his size and how that's going to not translate so well to the NHL, I think, Just overall, I think that's just nothing but praise for Lane Hutson. I just can't believe we stole him in that draft. It's still really wild to me, So, I think it's going to be good for his development to stay in BU for another year. Let his frame, let his strength, and just let his maturity, his maturity and his brain develop another year in general. Before he hits the NHL level, there's nothing wrong, even if he gets complacent and the skill isn't necessarily being gained. I think just overall, it's more important to just let him get those puck touches at the NCAA level and at least let him hit like 19, 20 years old before you just come into the NHL is always a good thing, I think. Let that prospect, let that talent truly ripen even more. But anyways, moving on to Sean Farrell, man. Habs signed him today. They did it. I had a feeling it was going to get done this week after, Sean Farrell and Harvard Crimson were taken out of that NCAA tournament. I know Farrell was really, really eager to join the Habs this week, or this whole season. He's been wanting to. 3-year deal. He's going to join the team on this trip to Buffalo and Philly. Scouting reports just say, and you guys, I'm sure, have seen the highlights of him at some point. He's a playmaker. He's a play driver. He drives the play through the neutral zone. He makes slippery, quick give-and-go passes. He's really just has a really good offensive hockey IQ to just watch the plays unfold before they even happen and understand where to distribute the pucks in dangerous areas. He's at the puck all the time. He's a play developer. He just really dictates the offensive drive of the play. He's not so great defensively. That's probably not going to translate well to the NHL level, I'm sure. There's a lot of scouting reports say he has a lot of trouble picking up the right man, going in the defensive zone, being in the right areas at a lot of times. Scouting reports also say he's pretty good at his strength along the walls at just hounding at the puck and just regaining puck possession. He's just tenacious in that nature, probably because he has a really strong lower base to his body, Kind of really reminds me of like maybe a Kirby Dach kind of style player. Just really smart with the puck, knows what he's going to do with the puck before he even has it. Just understands the offensive game really well. It seems like with his vision, like Kirby Dach, I could see them possibly having some chemistry together. On this little stint to finish off the Habs season. Maybe another guy that's like quick, slippery, does a lot of nice little give and go, set up plays. Maybe a guy like Jonathan Drouin can play alongside him. That might be a nice line to see, Drouin, Dach, and see how Farrell fits in. Although, I don't really know if that would be the best defensively, All three of them typically aren't the greatest in the defensive zone just yet. But who knows? The offensive upside of that could be worth it. He's, concerns about his smaller stature again. Honestly, I don't know. We'll have to see how he handles the physicality of the NHL level, and if his hockey IQ is good enough in the offensive zone to be able to not get leveled and rocked on a lot of plays. So we'll find out about that. Moving on to a little bit of the injury updates. As you guys all know, Josh Anderson's going to miss the rest of the season with that high ankle sprain after that little cheap shot from Sergachev there in that 3-2 win over the Lightning in the final minute when he smashed his ankle into the post. It's kind of disappointing. 69 games played. He had, I believe it was 21 goals, 11 assists. He had 32 points on the year. He tied his points from last season. He had 32 points last season, except he had 19 goals, I believe. So he hit the 20-goal mark this year. You just really saw that he was playing a lot more consistently. He wasn't just, I'm going to show up to play against the Toronto Maple Leafs and play really hard against them and then cruise into a little vacation mode for a few days. He was playing consistent hockey, more defensive hockey too. He was on a penalty kill. He was out there blocking a lot of shots, just way more aggressive in the defensive zone, I noticed, and he had more vision and creativity to his game in the offensive zone as of late, playing more to the interior. He wasn't so just, I'm going to streak down the boards with the puck and absorb a lot of hits and try to drive through behind the net and then pass the puck up to the point. He was more of driving to the net, stopping, looking for areas where players were, not just driving around the boards, So that's kind of disappointing that his season ended like that. I really thought he could have hit the 25-goal mark. And I don't want to see him go. A lot of people are talking about Josh Anderson's contract, try to trade it this summer. You get something valuable in return, maybe even at the draft, and that a lot of teams are needing a power forward like him, and it could really help out on their playoff run because the power forwards are pretty rare in the league. Blah 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 blah. Why can't we keep that? If it's rare, isn't that a benefit for us? I think he could still really plug in and contribute in a lot of different ways to this team. Still. We have a lot of smart, high IQ hockey players to kind of camouflage and blend them into the lineup. And you can see high IQ hockey players, really smart players that are helping him out with his game. Like I just mentioned, his creativity and his vision's better in the offensive zone a little bit. We need that high energy freight train just railing guys in on the boards on the forecheck when he's ramped up too. And it's really, really beneficial to have a guy that can just drive through players and take up space for other players as well. Caden Gooley, he's also going to be out for the rest of the season. I don't even know why he came back, to be honest. Played a couple games. In that Florida game on that road trip last week, he really just, he didn't look 100%. He looked like he was really struggling to skate with full efficiency and strength in his strides. You could tell that lower body injury wasn't fully healed. So shut it down, done for the rest of the year. So Anderson and Gooley are out, just as we get Evans, Doc, and Gallagher back. It's just our luck this year, It's just the hockey gods giving us a little karma for probably that Stanley Cup run 2 years ago. We just can't win this year. Every single time we gain players back from an injury, we just lose a couple. So, of course, go figure. I just think that we really need to dive deep into the medical staff, into the trainers this summer. Kent Hughes does, and his management team need to look into it and do a little bit of police work and investigating, I think. It's not a coincidence to some extent that 2 years in a row we had the most man games lost due to injuries. I understand. Personally, I played hockey growing up all the way until I was 18, 19 years old. I understand the warrior spirit and the warrior nature of a hockey player, wanted to drive through and just get back on the ice and just have that tough mentality and just that stubborn mentality as well. But, are the medical staff and the trainers being influenced by these players too much? Are they just being easily persuaded by these players and letting them make the decision as to whether or not their injuries are good? Or are they actually thoroughly going through these injuries, looking at all the variables, looking at all the factors in play on these injuries, and really assessing whether or not they're actually good to go back to play? I just think that they don't take their time and really think things through with some of the situations that have happened this year, the medical staff, and I just think it just needs to be reassessed and looked at. I'm not calling for anybody's job. I mean, whatever has to happen, but something's off there. You can't just have this many injuries without some type of just disorder within the system of the medical training staff. I just think it needs to be looked at, Caden Gooley, Sean Monahan, Brandon Gallagher, guys like those injury situations this year were questionable, especially Sean Monahan. He had his foot in a cast, and he was playing hockey on that for a while. The guy has history of major hip injuries that he's been battling through for years before we acquired him. If he has a foot injury and he's playing on that, your hips are connected to your foot. You're going to put pressure on your hips, and you're going to eventually injure your hips. That's just common sense. Every part of your body is all connected within each other. Why was he even playing in the first place? That was a big risk to put him out there like that, especially when we were trying to move him at the trade deadline, as he was an asset to try to gain us another draft pick this summer. I just think that wasn't thoroughly evaluated and really thought through. And I think, that's on the training medical staff. Caden Gooley, why the hell was he back to play in Florida in that game? Clearly he wasn't 100%. Clearly he was struggling to put full power into his strides with that lower body injury he has. There's a lot of talk and rumors about how he was really wanting to just get back on the ice when his initial injury took place in December, and he was trying to convince everybody that he was ready to go just a week or two into his injury. And he ended up being out for 3 months, and maybe the medical staff just rushed him back, just didn't give him the full proper amount of time to heal his injury. He probably just shouldn't have came back in the first place and sat out the rest of the year. In a year like this, where it's more about development, it's more about gaining the team brand and the culture, and we're not going to the playoffs, why rush him back? Why rush him back? This is supposed to be a staple defenseman of our future, a key part of our future, a guy who's really gonna hold the blue line for us for years to come, and you're risking that asset potentially damaging his career by putting him back for a few games at the end of this season. It's just poor choice making there, I think. Cole Caulfield, holy crap, could you imagine? He was one tweak of his shoulder away, one more little incident with his shoulder away from really severely damaging his shoulder to the point it probably would have been worse than the situation he's in now, which is shoulder surgery, and he's coming back in September ready to go. They should have shut that down at the beginning of the year if that was the case, instead of letting him play until, January, with that much of a risk. That was silly. That was really silly to play with fire like that. I get it. He wanted to hit the 40-goal mark this year. We all wanted him to hit the 40-goal mark. But I think the Habs knew, and we all knew they were out of the playoff race way earlier than January. I know the reasoning behind pulling them out when they did was because, we're not in the playoff race anymore, so shut it down. No, 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 no. It doesn't matter if we made the playoffs or not this year. It doesn't. This year was about development, like I said. Our goal at the beginning of the season was not to make the playoffs. Our goal was just focused on the future of this rebuild, just really reinforcing the foundation of this team. And to just jeopardize, I'm just going to go ahead and say our team superstar, which he is, like the face of this freaking franchise for the next 10 years. It's just asinine to me. And that is just, that speaks volumes as to the training and medical staff, and really needs to be addressed. Is the Cole Caulfield incident, to me, is really made the whole picture of this whole situation really stand out to me. It's just, I hope they really reassess that situation in the summertime and come up with smarter, more thought-through, thorough plans as to how they're going to approach injuries next year and how they're going to evaluate players, and just not be so gun and trigger happy to just throw players back into the lineup when they're not ready. It's silly. It's not worth it. Especially 2-3 years from now, when this team's really, really, really actually going to be competing for playoffs positioning and making a deep run. You can't just make these silly decisions to throw people in the lineup and jeopardize them being injured even more, staying out of the lineup even longer, and then not being available come crunch time in March, in April, in the first round of the playoffs, So this needs to be addressed right away. Just rip the Band-Aid off. I hope they get it done this summer. Last thing I want to touch up on is a little bit of the standings, what's going on with the tanking. The Habs are currently 5th to last right now, but let me just read off the standings for you. We have, let's see, Philadelphia, they're in 26th spot right now, 68 points, 72 games played. Arizona's right behind them, 67 points, 74 games played. Then us, we are in 28th, 64 points, 73 games played. Anaheim, 29th, with 56 points, 73 games played. Chicago, 54 points, 73 games played. We have Columbus, 53 points and 72 games played. Dead last, San Jose, 53 points and 73 games played. I really don't see us fluctuating too much from the spot we're at right now. Possibility we get red hot, we move up past, Arizona and Philly. So worst case scenario, we're 7th in the lottery. We play Philly one more time, so that is a realistic possibility. I don't really see us totally falling behind to the point where Anaheim catches up to us. What are they? Yeah, 8 points behind us, same amount of games played. We'd really have to go on a pretty much just lose out the rest of the way to fall behind that far. So I think we're going to finish in that 5 to 7 range. I don't see us falling back that far. We're too far ahead of Chicago. We're too far ahead of Columbus and San Jose. I think realistic expectations, we're going to finish 5th, 6th, somewhere in that ballpark, which is fine. This draft is loaded with talent. To get the top 5, top 7 pick in this draft in other years would be like getting a top 2, top 3 pick, really. Realistically. So that's all I got for you. The Habs are in Buffalo tomorrow night, and they're in Philadelphia Tuesday night, and then they are at home against Florida on Thursday. So I'll probably be doing a game reaction video on Wednesday going over the Buffalo and Philly game. Stay tuned for that. Go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel, Chris's Habs Corner. It would really go a long way in helping me out as I'm just starting this out. Be much appreciated. Thank you for watching. Go Habs, go.